Hey y'all, let's go. Let it go. Hey y'all, come on in. Come on in, come on in. Hi everybody. I'm putting the title in. Thank you for your patience, lovely people. Had me small delay, but it's all good. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to pin this comment and we're going to get ready. I love I love my guests. I like Wendy, I'm ready, honey. Okay. Wait a minute. Send a request. I want to send a request to a guest who's scheduled. Hello. Hello everybody. Come on in. Come on in. My guest is being added. Oh, there she goes. Hi,
Hi.
Sade. Hey, I apologize for the delay, honey. I'm juggling a few things.
I got it. I was like trying to get all my errands done this morning, and I'm just sitting here like I was listening to Clubhouse this morning. I don't know if you heard what was going on, but yeah, that really wow.
I sent a message to the main person who was attacked. Because in the helping field, okay, you learn that some people don't want to be helped. They don't like truth, and they will find out whatever they can about you, just using a little something and try to attack you with it. So she's in good company. They've all dealt with it, and I pray that it didn't hurt her too bad. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, because that's nasty. So anyway, we are here to help people on our end the
No.
way that we are going to do it on this platform for the Surviving Mama Trauma series that I've been doing. And you have such a unique and you have a unique spirit. And I love your story and the fact that you have decided I'm not going to sit back and make myself a victim in my own story. I'm going to get the help that I need. I'm going to make sure that my child has a better life, and you're protective and different things like that. And I just want you to bless the people. So let's introduce ourselves and get to it. So hi everybody, I am Wendy Wisdom. I am here to kind of help shift your perspective to at least interrupt the pattern and the story that you have that's holding you back from whatever family trauma, drama, and just getting out of our own way. So I'm going to have my guest introduce herself and we're going to move forward.
Okay. Hi, I'm Sade Islas. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Um, that's really about
All
it.
right now. And she's resilient and she has a great story. So if you don't mind getting started, share with us. So share with us a little bit of your journey about your childhood trauma.
Okay. So we grew up in a small town in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my dad and mom met like at a club that my grandparents owned. Um, then they went and got married. After that, my father had an older girl, and my mother had an older son. And they had me. And when I was 5, we were living in Michigan, and I remember like this big argument because my dad got stationed to Alaska, and we had to move, but my brother wasn't coming.
Okay.
That's one of the weirdest things. Like, how could you not bring your own child? And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even find out about my sister until I was 12.
Okay.
So we moved to Alaska, and everything was peachy, great childhood, fun games, playing all that stuff until I turned 11.
Okay.
Started my cycle.
Okay.
And my mom wasn't there. I had to go ask my dad for help. And he basically was like, grab one of those pads and throw them on type thing. And the next night, our pipes had froze. So me being like, it was normal, like to just go lay in my parents' bed, stuff like that. And I laid in the bed, and me and my dad were talking, like da 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 da. And next thing you know, his hands were on me, and he was on top of me. And it was over, and he told me to go take a shower. I went and took a shower, and I went in my room and I cried. And that continued all the way until I was 16.
Wow. So the
In
sexual
between,
abuse went on from 11 to 16.
yes.
Okay.
Um,
Was your mom home the first night that it happened?
no,
Okay.
but she did catch him a couple years later with
Okay.
a same scenario type incident on the couch, and it was basically I don't know if I can use that type of language. I'm trying to censor it.
Be as real as you can.
Basically, you're a little slut, and you caused this, and
Okay.
it
Okay.
was we
So
would
she
always
blamed you for your dad's
yes.
behavior, basically. And that's something
Mhm.
that's very common. I've been working in child welfare for over 10 years, and that's something that's very common. And it does great emotional harm and damage um, to the victim, well, the survivor, excuse me, to the survivor. And sometimes that happens because it's generational. Sometimes, it's happened to mom or, these things we don't talk about in the family. You hide it, you're
Mhm.
forced to not tell anybody about it.
And
Um,
I remember trying to
mhm,
tell people,
mhm.
but if people who knew my dad knew, like, what, like he would never do that. Like nobody believed me.
Gotcha.
And I grew up in the town that I grew up in. It wasn't as diverse.
Yeah.
Um, a small black community, but they were military, which my dad was a part of. So it was like, what? Like you're just. My dad would say like, I'm trying to get attention, and
Wow.
then of course that deals with like, that every girl wants to talk to like little boys, and
Yeah.
I was really really closed off and stayed to myself, and
Okay.
I didn't talk to like boys. I talked to like grown men. So
Wow.
that
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
when I during that phase, it was normal, right? Like
Yeah.
your dad's fucking you, so why can't I just go do whatever I want type thing.
Yeah.
So, and there was no like real discipline or anything like that. Like
Yeah.
it got to the point where like, here I am 15, 16, you're trying to discipline me, but what?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You
you know,
weren't you weren't open to listening because
nothing at all.
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
took me moving out of the house at 18 to go to college. And of course, I'm dealing with all this anger, all this trauma. I get kicked
Yeah.
out of fighting. And it wasn't until I landed like my first real job, like actual career, that had the employee help services that I
Hmm.
started utilizing. But throughout my childhood, like me and my mom never had a good relationship. Like there was no mother daughter
No
bonding.
nurturing.
It used to be when I was like before the sexual assault happened.
Yeah.
We used to like, she'd do my hair and pick my nails. Like I'd do her hair. We'd play Barbies.
Oh. Yeah.
Stopped. Like she stopped becoming my mom and becoming a woman of competition.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. You became her competition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know if your mom had her own history of childhood sexual abuse?
I did find that out later in life that she
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
by her. I don't know if that was her father or her stepfather. I don't
Okay.
really remember when I found this out, it was like probably like late 20s
Okay.
before
Yeah.
my husband. But
Yeah.
you know, so, and then she was also physically abused, and then she does have some mental health issues as well as physical disabilities. So she was, made fun of and sort of shunned for that. Like she
Oh,
wasn't the pretty one in the family, and stuff like that.
okay.
And her mother was abusive. My grandmother was an alcoholic. I do remember, like, I thought it was normal. I thought it
Yeah.
was normal.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for your courage in sharing that because childhood sexual trauma is something that is still taboo. People still don't like to talk about it. And I want people to get from this that they're not alone. And some people don't really get to talk about it until they're in their 30s, 40s, and 50s when they go
Mhm.
to counseling, because they're still having intimacy issues. They still have anger and rage issues. They're substance abusers. Oh, but your volume went out. I can't
Oh,
hear.
can you hear me now?
Okay, now I can hear you. Yep.
Oh, I was saying like mine was definitely
Oh,
anger and rage, excuse me. A lot of fighting. But I was in a
okay.
position where I was working in corrections, so
Okay.
and working at a male facility, so it was anytime that a man said something to me, I automatically challenge it, aggressive. Like that's how I was for a long time.
Masculine energy, right?
Super masculine, like hard butch stud lesbian masculine energy.
Gotcha.
Nothing about me is feminine. No
Gotcha.
makeup, no nothing. No tight fitting
Gotcha.
clothes, no
Gotcha.
exactly nothing.
Gotcha. Would you agree that because you were not seen, felt, or heard as a child, and nobody protected you, you felt like you had to defend and protect yourself?
Absolutely. Nobody was
Yeah.
gonna I had to do it myself in any
Yes.
way.
Yes. And I'm sure you were able to protect yourself in such a way that guys knew not to play with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's usually, so that's why when people use this term masculine, I'm like, a lot of women who you see are being masculine, they're not masculine because they just want to be hard and they just want to compete with a guy, or they want to make a guy know, don't play with me. A lot of these women have been put in positions where they had no other choice but to protect themselves, but to be the man in their lives to protect themselves. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mhm.
when I hear people use that to shame women now, I'm just like, it's so emotionally damaging, right? But I do feel like there are some women who do need to scale back the masculine energy. There are
Yeah.
just some women that, they don't mind showing up with that rah energy. And I'm just like, wait a minute, sis, calm down, right? So but I guess I have compassion when I see the masculine energy. Because I told Gabe I'm a recovering masculina. I said, so I said, so I had that same energy. Like, you're not going to fool with me. Leave me alone. I don't bother nobody, but I will match your energy. That's just what it was. Um, because I felt like I wasn't protected in my own household. I felt like, because my mother had a favorite child. And I know one time me and my older brother got into a physical altercation. And, like he punched, like of course I grabbed stuff, right? And so he punched me in my ribs. Like I could not laugh or cough or sneeze for like a week.
Uh-huh.
And because it hurt so much. And my mother just like, get over it.
Yep.
There was no, and so I learned from that, how to protect myself. And if it happened again, it is what it is. I'm going to treat you like a stranger on the street because you're not going to just put your hands on me. And so mothers sometimes don't realize how damaging that is when you're not protective to your children. Actually, in Washington, D.C., you can be charged for failure to protect your children. But
Oh,
anywho, so let's move on to, I know you had shared that, and it's so funny, you told your story some time ago. Because I'm a social worker, I remember stuff. So I know you shared that in therapy, I think your therapist, as you're unpacking and processing things, I think your therapist tried to help you to see if you could press charges against your father.
yes. But it
Okay.
was a statute of limitations type of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't, because there's still deep down inside of me that little tiny piece that's like, well, what about my mom? If I were to say this and go public with this, what would happen to her?
Oh,
Like,
no.
and I still sometimes think about it, not like how I used to,
Yeah.
but I think about because my dad, he like had multiple girlfriends while he was with my mom. Some of those girlfriends children that were my age or younger, older. Like it just depends
Whoa.
on the time. So I
Wow.
don't know who he could have assaulted during my time, after
Yeah.
my time, what's
Yeah.
going on right now. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think about that, but then I'm just like, I did my part. Like I separated from them. Like that
Yeah.
closure. I put everything out. When after I got, during the courtship with my husband, we talked about things because he was like, you never talk about your family,
Mm.
you went to see my family. And then I finally just had, laid it all out.
Yeah.
Not all of it,
Yeah.
but majority of it's where he understood. And he was like, oh, well, I see why, you
Yeah.
never talked. And then we found out we were pregnant. And I was still on again, off again, talking to my parents, like
Yeah.
just, like, haha, I'm married, or ha ha
Yeah.
ha, career I promoted.
Yeah.
But when I found out I was pregnant, it was like, I knew deep down that I wouldn't have my child deal with them. But physically knowing I'm pregnant, like I'm about to have this baby, I'm
Yeah.
going into the trimester. I wrote them a letter and I sent that letter, 2 copies, so to my mom and my dad. What happened between me and my dad, what happened between me and my mom. I sent a copy to my brother and I sent a copy to one of our family friends.
Okay.
And um and I sent a copy to my sister because we are trying to mend our relationship, but she still holds jealousy of being able to grow up with my dad. And I was like, look, I just protected you. Like you're lucky.
Right. You
So
saved her without her even knowing.
yeah. And then there was like the whole, I had to cut her off because she was still in communication with them
Okay.
and sending like, pictures of her niece. Cause I grew up like trying to like, when we established our relationship, I was trying to establish a relationship with my nephew, so we were helping, like my husband and I were helping, him with college stuff and getting ready to go to school and, whatever we could. Cause it's like, that's a big thing that needs to be celebrated. You're going to college. Like, that's
Yeah.
a big deal. And I know you guys aren't doing well financially. So, do you need a laptop? Do you need school supplies? Like, what do you need? And, and in response to that, she was sending pictures of my daughter back to my family. Like, no, why would you
Yeah.
do that? So I
Yeah.
haven't really talked to her. It's kind of like one of those, if she calls, she calls, but.
Got it. Um, so you mentioned that your dad, I know he's a military man. You guys were in a small town. You mentioned that, while he was still married to your mom, he messed with younger women. Well, women, period, but younger women also. Do you think people in the town knew, but they just decided, you know what, I'm gonna mind my business? Maybe
So,
because they respected him and it was a small town.
so later on in life, when I finally like sent the letter out and started putting it out, there was
Hmm.
2 people who I still look up to this day who like sort of helped me during certain phases in my life.
Hmm.
One was like my high school basketball coach, and another one was she was like not a family friend, but she was part of like the adult circle.
Yes.
Um, they were like, they sort of thought that like our relationship was off. Like my dad would gift me like really extravagant gifts, like diamond tennis bracelets, diamond necklaces. I didn't have a license, and here I was at 12, like driving around without a license with a car.
Wow.
Back when the PT Cruiser first came out, like when that came out in our town, that was like a big deal, and I had one. Then, like, what, a year later, I had this big F-250 truck, like
Wow.
14, so like 12, 13, yeah, 14 learner's permit. Um, I always had like really expensive, extravagant clothes, and always,
Wow.
hills to school and purses, but you're still a kid. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
16.
Yeah. So,
So people thought it was off, like how much he spoiled me, but really he was just grooming me and keeping me silent.
yeah, pretty much. Yep. He was keeping you silent. Absolutely. So they knew something was off, but they didn't really know what was off.
And
Okay.
nobody to like ask.
Ask. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you okay? I think I would have said something because I tried to say something to like other kids,
Yeah.
thinking like their relationship with their parents, and their parents like didn't do any of that, or they
Right.
never. any of that with their parents. I was like, okay, so maybe if I say something, then they're like, but I didn't know how to say it. You know, you
Right.
don't say, you know, you're being molested, that you're being beaten, that
Yeah.
you're being called every name in the book. How
Yeah.
do you do it? And then on top of that, I was also bullied at school. So it was like this giant, it was like there was no safe, the only safe space for me was on the basketball court. That
Wow.
was literally the only thing that helped me.
Yeah.
Because I had committed suicide. Like I had tried twice.
Wait,
So
so you tried to commit suicide twice as a child?
as a child, yeah.
Wow.
At
And
13.
nobody thought any, did your mom and dad know about that?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay.
I did it at work. So it was like, you
Okay.
know, I didn't take enough pills. So when I got up, it was like just like you're sick, you're throwing up.
Gotcha.
Like, so
Got it. Got it. I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm thankful that you didn't go that route. I'm thankful
me
that you didn't succeed.
either.
And I'm sure your husband and daughter are glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Also, um, so how was your relationship with women? Because you didn't have that nurturing, bonding relationship with your mom once she found out about the sexual abuse with you and your dad. Did that tarnish how you felt about women once you and her relationship derailed?
Not really, because
Okay.
I find like love and comfort in other women.
Okay.
Um, I always tried to be a good friend because I had this ability to like take what I was feeling and put that in the box and not show it or say it or anything.
Yeah.
Always had like my basketball teammates, especially in college, like that group of those group of women were like my family. Like we did everything together. Like, and it was something as simple as just like listening to them like talk about other relationships, and it's like, oh wow, you know, or like when they, hey, my family's having a barbecue, come on over, and it was like I would experience this family, this like closeness, and you know, it was, I didn't think that it was anything
Got it.
like bad. I just know I was like maybe socially awkward, like the weird one. Like, oh, that's, you know, that's just Sade. She's just weird. So.
Got it. Okay. Um, and so how protective of you with your daughter? So let's say if she has school friends that want to do a sleepover at a friend's house and it's a mom and a dad there, what is your
Hmm.
response? Right, right. And you know what's so
We
crazy?
already had a sleepover, but it was at art.
Gotcha, gotcha.
And
Listen,
I had
like when I was
full
younger,
3 years. I'll never do that again. But
yeah, yeah. You know,
yeah.
when I was younger, my mother was very adamant. You don't go to your friend's house to spend the night, especially if there's an older man in the house. And I used to cry. I'm like, but what's the problem? And I didn't understand it that until I got older. My mother, she's just the type. First of all, my family's West Indian, so explaining things to a child is not something they do. What I say, go, shut up, and just deal with it, right?
Mhm.
And I try to tell my mom over the years, like, there's so much understanding I could have gotten from certain things. I had to
Right.
get it from other people. To this day, I'm still drawn to older women. You know, even though me and my mom have repaired our relationship, I love her. That's my girl. I just know how to deal with her. If things get a little too heated at her house, I'm like, where are my keys at? Let me get out of here. You know, so I know how to deal with her. Um, but that's something, and I try to when I work with young girls and they say, well, my mom don't want me to go to sleepovers and my friends get to have fun and I can't. And I'm like, your mom is protecting you. Okay.
Mhm.
You know, try to talk to your mom about having the sleepover at your house, but try to tell them without telling them, that sometimes young girls are not safe around grown men. And I
Mhm.
try not to say it that way. I want their mothers to be the one to tell them that. And there's been a few where I've had to just flat out say it. And once I say it, they let me know they've already been sexually abused. I'm like, so you should know and understand why your mama don't want you sleeping at anybody's house. But
Right.
sometimes
I
they don't
do
get it.
think, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do think that there's a certain amount of healing that you have to do, because
Yeah.
that's like placing all men in a box. My
Yeah.
daughter has friends, and we've gone over their house, and you
Yeah.
know, they're their husbands work with my husband type thing.
Got it.
I don't want to place somebody else's father in that position,
Got
but
it. Yep.
I just also don't want to take that gamble with her.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, we'll go do play dates and we go do our co-ops, and she has plenty of like social time with her friends. And luckily, it's sad, but her best friend ended up moving, so she hasn't asked like for a sleepover or anything
Okay.
because even though she has like other friends to play with.
That's good. That's good. And so you have a very you allow your daughter to feel safe telling you any and everything, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's one thing I love about millennial parents, where we're breaking barriers. Like we're trying to not repeat the same thing that, what is that, Gen X did, the
Mhm.
generation, before us. We're trying to break those barriers, but we're open to coaching, we're open to mental health services, we're open to sharing our stories, and also parenting differently. And I just love that, because a lot of times growing up, parents didn't want to hear how you felt about anything, what bothered you. And
Mhm.
so when I'm working with parents, I try to encourage them. You want your kids to feel safe emotionally to tell you what's going on. If they
Mhm.
don't feel comfortable around somebody, listen to them. If they don't say anything and start acting differently around a certain adult, even a friend, you have to listen and pay attention to that, because sometimes they don't have the words.
Yeah, and it's really nonverbal cues with kids.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They're, now that she's like, she's 4 now, so she's talking more. And,
Yeah.
as soon as she was able to like really comprehend, we started talking about body parts and using the proper name for body parts. And then for like the first, I think when we moved here, so when she was 3, because we live in Colorado now, they had a unicorn fillings series. It's a book series,
Mm-hmm.
and we every single day until we could learn those proper feelings like
Yep.
mad, angry, sad. And then she would be like, "Well, I'm mad." And I'm like, "Okay, well, why are you mad?"
That's good.
And then now she can properly articulate. Because I was really big, like, taking her to her sports, like dance, gymnastics, all that stuff. I'm sitting there just, yay, good job, baby. I was so terrified to leave her alone. And then when COVID hit, parents weren't allowed in. So I'm like outside in my jacket, peeping through the window for like an
Yeah.
hour. Something's not right. Like, chill out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
but just when it comes to her, like, yeah, I'm going to watch you like a hawk. But you also, like, she's able to say, you know what, mom, I need some space. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go to my room. And she'll go to her room and shut her door and do whatever for like 5 minutes. And then she'll come back out like, and I'm like, well, do you want to talk about it? And she'll tell me like what she's feeling.
Okay. Good.
To be, whether it's any activity that she's doing where, do you want mommy to stay or do you want me to go out, in the car? And she's like, oh, you can go outside now. Okay.
Got
Like,
it.
I want her to know that. And she knows that, like, if a kid says something to her, you stick up for yourself. Say,
Yeah.
no, stop doing that. If somebody touches you in any of your private parts, you tell your teacher, whatever the adult is there, and then you make sure you tell me, like, don't tell me when we get home. Don't tell me when we get home. Like, as soon as I walk in and hey,
Yeah.
baby, you need to tell me what's going on. And she's, okay, mom.
That's good. That is really good. So hopefully parents, receive from that. You want to encourage your kids to tell you everything, especially if they feel like
Even
somebody's being inappropriate.
Yeah, but even the uncomfortable stuff, like I want her
Yeah.
to tell me that she likes, whoever it is that she likes, or
Yeah.
the voice in our house. Like, yes, you're a child in this house, and I'm the mom, I'm the adult, but and I'm, I instead of saying like, you're my best friend or something like that, I go,
Yeah.
oh, you're my favorite person,
Yeah. Yeah.
try to make it so that way she can, and it's not just with me. She knows she can tell her dad too. Like,
Yeah.
if my you can tell dad because dad is just as important. It's just
Yeah.
that I'm home with her,
Yeah.
so you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you made the decision in your mind, because I'm sure it took a lot for you to decide, I have to write this letter, I'm done. What did you go through anything emotional? Were you crying? Were you upset a lot? Were you anxious, nervous? Like, explain, how did you feel saying, I'm going to write this letter and I'm done?
So I always knew that at some point, if I were to get married and have kids, I would have to make the decision to not have my parents in my life.
Okay.
Mhm. And then, of course,
Well,
like
why? I'm sorry. Why is that? Why did it take for you to feel like you need to be married for you to set that boundary?
I didn't plan on having kids like being like outside of marriage. I didn't plan on being a mom or anything like that.
Got it.
Um, so I wanted a partner, a life partner. Like I wanted marriage and a family.
Yeah.
I wanted that because
Yeah.
I didn't. And at first, I was really scared of it.
Yeah.
Nah, that's not for me. Like, oh, your kid's cute, I'll give it back. But as I got older, I was like, I'll be a pretty good mom because I know everything to not do. Like, I know all the wrong things, so just do the opposite of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
of course, like, my husband was not going to be open to his child, his little girl, even if it was a little boy, but we had a
Yep.
girlfriend,
Yep.
to be in a relationship with someone who abused. Because if you can do that to me, what makes you think that they wouldn't do that to her?
Exactly.
So that
Exactly.
was always like the thought process. So I sat down, I was at work, I was still working then, and I was like, I need to get this off my chest. And I remember just sitting there, just typing, typing, typing. And it went from like a page to like
Mm.
20 pages. And I was like, okay, well,
Oh.
we don't need that. And I gave it to my husband, and I was like, I need you to read this. And he sat there and he read it, and he was like, okay, when you're going to send it? Like, he's always been supportive. Like, he's never
Okay.
been one of those, like, I don't think that you should do that unless it's
Right.
something that's completely crazy.
Yeah.
But when it comes to that particular project, and I say project because it really was like I had to go back through like and take some stuff out because it
Right.
was just repeating myself, and I
Mm.
wanted the letter. So it was a two-part letter. Part one was to my mom, and then part two to my dad. And
Yeah.
then the ending was basically, I'm done with you. Don't bother to call because I had blocked. I had at the time because I knew it was going to be like some calls. So I started getting all these random calls, and I ended up blocking them from the
Mm.
phone, from
Yeah.
social media, from email. Like there was no way you were going to contact me anymore at this
Yeah.
point.
Got it. That's really courageous because sometimes it's not sometimes, most times it's hard to set boundaries with those that we love and we are related to.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you told your story that, you wrote your letter like, this is it, I was
And I
just
did.
like,
I tried writing it. I felt
huh?
like
Wait, I didn't hear
I,
you. It was low. Say it again.
I cried writing it. I felt um,
Okay.
some type of way writing it. Like it's not like up until the molestation happened, I had a happy childhood,
Yeah.
and I try to keep those good memories.
Yeah.
Um, when people ask about my childhood, I was like, oh, it's okay. Like I don't really. This is only my second time verbally, publicly,
Wow.
and I didn't realize like the messages that I got and some of the women that had contacted me. I was like, wow, maybe I should be a little bit more vocal about it because what are you going to do now? Like what's going to happen now? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
always going to be my version versus their version. You ask my mom, it never happened. I made it up. She's found ways to get a hold of my brother because I think he just entertains her because it's entertaining to listen to her type of
Right.
thing.
Right.
So, I remember she saying that my white family had brainwashed me. And I was like, yeah, you're crazy. So, but I felt, I felt sad about it. And the first year was hard. Like at her birthday, Mother's Day, things like that, like that would just come back and hit you. Like it felt like I was losing something.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I did get a mom. I got my other mom, and we would go shopping together. Like when we go, I went back in August to go visit them. It was my daughter's birthday.
Wait,
Um,
and who did you say was your other mom?
my mother-in-law.
Your mother-in-law. Okay, good, good.
And, we go shopping and we cook together and we talk and we do Bible study and we call each other at least like once a week. So, I mean, I have a mother figure,
Yes, yes.
a woman that I could go to for like motherly advice.
Yeah,
Um, and that's, if you ask my daughter who her grandparents are, she, Papa and Grandma, like that's who she knows, my
yeah.
in-law. Like that's her whole world is Papa and Grandma.
Got
So.
it. Got it. Yeah. Oh, we have a question. Let's see. It says, do you find yourself being open to your in-laws or reserved because of your past?
In the beginning I was reserved
Yeah.
because they were so my husband is super like spontaneous and outgoing and
Okay. Hmm.
and then his parents, he's the complete opposite of his parents. They're, really conservative, very Catholic values.
Okay.
So, I was the second woman of color he brought home, but the first one with tattoos. So, and it was like, so I was like, remember wearing like a cute little like long dress, sleeved dress, and but they were never judgmental or anything
Hmm.
like that. They welcomed me with open arms. My father-in-law, actually, he was like, when I first met him, he was like, "Yeah, you're going to be the one that our son marries." And I was like, "Okay." So, but they made it comfortable for me to be
Good.
me.
Good.
So in the beginning, you want to impress your in-laws. You want
Yeah.
to have that relationship because
Yeah.
I wanted family and I wanted, like a mother and a father and a husband and a child and grandparents and
Yeah.
and like our daughter is named after her great grandmother my husband. So it was it's just like I became part of the family. So
Okay, got it. Um, so I'm going to ask you some, I guess, rapid fire questions. Um, and this one you can say yes or no. It's kind of sensitive. Did you have any intimacy issues because of the sexual abuse from your father? Did you find yourself like either promiscuous or not really comfortable being intimate once you were, doing your own thing?
at first I was not really comfortable. Then I went through what they like to call the hoe phase. So,
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
but that's all while I was younger, right? Like
Yeah,
here I am 16, 17, 18, and I was dealing with men who were 25, 26,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and they didn't know because I lied about my age. Like I was a really good liar. So they didn't.
Look, I think we all have lied about our age,
Mhm. But to the point where it
Yeah,
wasn't, they could have gotten in trouble.
yeah, yeah,
I don't think they generally knew because I was working, right? Like I had a job and my parents weren't parents of that were concerned about what I was doing when I wasn't at school. So I could easily walk into school and walk out the back door and go about my day and nobody would know, you know. So
wow. Um, and it was something you said that I want parents to really pay attention to. You said, oh, because of your childhood sexual trauma, you didn't want to project that onto your daughter's friends' fathers. Um, because for one, it's not fair, right?
mhm, mhm.
But it sounds to me like you've had a great deal of therapy
I went
because
through 3 therapists in 7 years because
got
I
it, got it, got it. Because have you seen the Steve Wilkos show?
no, I don't. I can't do stuff like that. It's just
Gotcha, gotcha. So this is so the reason why I brought that up. I mean, I have so many examples in my professional life, but I was trying to bring up something that people probably can relate to. But I've noticed, like on some of his guests, they'll come on and be like, "Oh, he's touching our child, and our my child gave me this elaborate story how daddy did this or daddy did that." And then the test results come back, he never sexually abused the child, never did anything inappropriate. And the mother's just like, oh, oh. And what it is that the mother have their own unresolved trauma in that area. And so
mhm.
it's easy to project that. You know what I'm saying?
Good,
Because
good.
they're out there screaming and yelling and crying. You did do something inappropriate to our child. Ma'am, the lie detector test determines that's not true.
You know,
So,
it's a catch-22 for men, right? Like,
yeah,
my husband didn't know anything about me, like in that aspect.
yeah,
Even when we were dating, it took us a point of trust to get there. And so when I,
yes,
he was like, wow, like he didn't understand how I could be who I was and how I was with all of that. And I was like, well, you have to like forgive yourself, because for a long
mm,
time it was like, this is happening because I did something. Like I did something, right? Like that's what I was for the longest
mm,
time. I didn't do anything,
nothing at all.
nothing at all, but be a kid
Yeah,
born into the family that I was born into.
yeah,
But I didn't do anything. I didn't ask anything. I didn't say anything. And when you start going to therapy, they start using like certain words, right? Like with the grooming process, or it becomes a psychological game of where now you feel attracted to this person and want to initiate these acts
yeah,
with that.
yeah,
It's not because you really want to, it's because of
yeah,
the psychological
mm,
process, them doing that to you, that you become what they want you to
yeah,
be. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I didn't really learn that until I took the therapy, and then I started reading psychology books, and then it just
yeah,
led to other books. Like it just becomes a giant hole of reading.
yeah,
But the one thing I want to say is that, you never get over it, right? But
yeah,
you can move forward and live a healthy life. Like
yes,
I was so terrified. Like, well, when I was going through therapy initially, well, what if I'm like an abuser? Like, would I hurt a kid? Would I touch a kid? You think like that. And it's in the process of healing, I'm sure those thoughts are normal. I can only speak for
yeah,
myself.
hmm,
But you realize everything that happened, like that's not, who you are, what you would
right,
be. And as someone who had the background that I did and worked in the professional field that I did and worked around men who were sexually abusing children, you start really understanding the psychology of
yeah,
the abusers, because they can be men or women, right?
yep, mm-hmm,
There
mm-hmm,
was a period when my mom thought she could abuse me, and I was more angry at her and fought her
yeah,
than I did with my dad. It took when I turned 16 for me to say, I don't like this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And we physically fought.
okay, you and your mom.
Me, my mom and my dad. We
Oh,
like, yeah,
oh, so
like
it was
I,
a little.
to the
Oh,
point,
wow.
yeah, like biting, scratching, kicking, whatever you could think of. I was done. I was done with it. I
Yeah,
didn't want it anymore.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then it became, I ran away, and then it became, well, what are you going to do with your life? So,
yeah. Got
but
it.
when you start learning the psychology of sexual abuse, like the
Hmm.
ones that initiate it, they're so messed up. And they're so, had they just had that one little voice to say, hey, what's wrong, or you can go seek help or something like that, instead of sweeping it underneath the rug. Because come to find out, like, my dad has been abusing multiple women in his family. Like that's been something that he's been, and he grew up with, he's the oldest boy and the second oldest child out of 10. Five boys and five
Wow. So, and
girls.
that's why I asked you when you said that he's cheated on your mom. I was like, do you think he may have done something to the younger girls? He was.
You didn't see it because I can admit, when I was there in the household, especially with the younger girls, I was like a hawk. I did not leave them alone. I took them with me. Like,
Got it.
I need you to stay right here. I'm going to use the bathroom. Like,
Got it.
you can come in if you want to. Like, I was very worried.
Protective. Yeah,
Yeah.
very
And
protective.
my family, my kids, nothing. But, I just didn't want that to happen to somebody else,
Yeah.
because it takes it takes a lot. Like, you don't
Yeah.
become you lose your confidence, you become a shell.
Yeah.
And that another little girl could feel like that, I didn't want that to happen.
Absolutely. And just not having, we have a question, but just not having that nurturing support from your mother, that is the person who's supposed to teach you how to be a woman and how to
Mhm.
develop a sense of self. So just not even having that support, right? That already messes up our ability to have a healthy sense of self. So you had to kind of figure it out on your own, deal with your
Mhm.
emotions, your grief, your grief and loss, because your innocence was stolen from you. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? But it sounds to me like you had some really good therapists, because most women that I'm not gonna say most, I don't know the number, but let me just say I've had a good number of clients that I've worked with who had the childhood sexual trauma. They ended up abusing alcohol or drugs. Very smart, dropped out of college, or had a scholarship to college, did not go, messing with the wrong kind of guys, and got caught up into certain things, And I'm just like, and all they want is for their mom to acknowledge what their moms asked them to not acknowledge, what their mothers told them to suppress and not talk about, family secrets, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And and I've tried to talk to some of the moms, like, is there anything your daughter wants you to acknowledge or apologize about? Especially when the kids come into foster care. So they usually have this family meeting to see who could be the supports, who could go through the process and clearances to get the kids versus putting them with a stranger, right? And so when grandmas come in, they're like, I don't know why my daughter is, whatever. My daughter didn't learn these things from me. But then when I get the family history from the daughter and the grandkids, I'm like, Grandma, now you know better than to come in here acting like you are saved, holy, and sanctified. You know
Mhm.
better than that. You know, and I'm like, it's a cycle. And so that's why I do this series, because I want people to hear you have to choose. You have to be intentional about your healing. You have to be intentional about forgiving yourself. You have to be intentional about setting boundaries. I don't want people to feel like this is something they have to hide forever and live with this secret, because you had to do some work before you met your husband. Could
Mhm.
you imagine if you had all this anger and you were trying to trauma bond? Yeah, and you
No.
were trying to trauma bond on the first date. You're like, listen, this is what I've been through and I don't trust men. He would have been like,
I did tell him on the first date, if you're expecting a salad chick, that's not me. Like, I like to eat.
I know that's right. But you didn't spill out your wounds on him the first
No,
or
no.
second date. You said you had to build up a bond and trust, a level of trust before you did that. And I wish that more women, especially, but men are doing it too, women. Be very careful. That is trauma bonding. When the first or second date, they're telling you all of this traumatic and traumatized and stuff they went through, they are trauma bonding. That never
Hmm.
turns out good. Because if that's how we connect about everybody who's done you wrong, it doesn't work out, because the blind can't lead the blind. Eventually I'm going to disappoint you or hurt you, and you're going to feel like I've done something wrong to you too. You know what I'm saying? It's not a fruitful relationship, so we have to be careful about trauma bonding, and not pouring out all of our secrets and stuff on the first or second date. Develop a
Right.
level of trust, to even see if that person is emotionally mature enough for you to share that level of privacy and sensitive information with them. So we have a
Mhm.
question. It says, have you heard anything back from your parents since you sent the letter, or was the letter that final goodbye?
So the letter was the final goodbye as far as my father. He's never tried to contact me since. My mother finds ways to periodically pop up.
Yeah.
I got a new phone and I didn't know it had a certain video chat on it. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know. And next thing you know, I see her face and I was like, "What? What do you want?"
Mm-hmm.
Okay, bye.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or when we did that clubhouse room, not
Yeah.
even the next day I woke up and checked my phone.
Yes,
Like,
that
"Please don't
was
tell you." I was like, "Oh, block." So
that
my
was
mom still tried,
crazy.
but my dad, I haven't heard anything.
So has he ever apologized? I guess he felt like, I bought you tennis bracelets, nice
Sent
car.
you to college and did all this stuff. Like, no, you ruined my life. But at the
Yeah.
that life was ruined.
That life, yes, that
We
life.
tried to have a conversation at 26. I was living in Florida at the time,
Mhm.
and he was there visiting or doing whatever. And we met up at a restaurant, and I remember sitting at the table across from him, and I was like, "Hey, do you ever feel sorry about?" And it was like, "Do you ever?" I don't remember all the words because that was
Right.
forever ago. But I tried to get him to like admit to it, to just say you're sorry, something, and it was just, no. I mean, things happen, and it was like he didn't gaslight me, but he just sort of talked in the circle, and he's really like good at words.
Okay.
He's like one of those like 1970 like pimp smooth, he's really
Yes.
good at words, and it's like if you are not paying attention to what he's not saying, you're not going to understand what he is saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And he probably feels like, I'm just assuming, because that happens in the grooming process, he feels like he doesn't owe you anything. He's
Yeah,
giving you the fancy designer labels, tennis bracelet, car. He feels like he made up for his wrongs,
right.
which is
And I think
crazy, but
because it's part of their process and their thoughts. But then again, I was 26, so what good was I? You know what I mean?
exactly.
I
Exactly.
wasn't vulnerable. Like, I'm gonna do whatever you say. Okay, I respect you and your voice. Like, no, I need answers. Like, you need to answer my questions. And
Yeah.
it was basically we sat there eating dinner, not talking about anything important.
Wow. Has your mom ever tried to apologize after you wrote the letter?
So her apology was in the form of, "It happened to me too, and you should get over it because this is 2019." That
Got it.
was her apology.
Got it. Which we know is not an effective way to apologize
Yeah.
at all.
If it happened to you, you should want to prevent that from happening to your child.
Absolutely. Yeah, but nobody probably protected her, and she was
They didn't.
probably made to feel like, get over it.
Mhm. And when I heard her story from a family member,
Yeah.
it was a close family member who watched her grow up and was a part of
Yeah.
her life. Nobody protected her.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm.
It's a
It
cycle. It is a
is.
cycle. It's generational, and hopefully people will be encouraged to pay attention to the nonverbal cues, and know that they don't have to you know because let me tell you why a lot of parents don't want to address what their children are going through, because then they have to face their own stuff, the stuff that they have buried within them, the
Mm.
harsh traumatic experiences they have. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to face it. And for me to deal with your trauma, it's going to be too much on me. And
Or,
so sometimes parents don't realize how incredibly selfish that is,
yeah.
because just because your child smiles, runs around, may play with other their siblings and stuff, it doesn't mean that they're okay. Because a lot of times these kids go to school and they act out with their behavior issues. Then they get diagnosed with ADHD or oppositional defiant disorder. They get diagnosed with all these different things. And it's like, it's not that they have these challenges. They are crying out for help. They don't have the words to express it, you know,
Mhm.
and they don't have adults around them that make it safe enough. And kids protect their parents a lot. I mean, a lot, a lot. I mean, they can have bruises on their arms and will still say they fell down the steps. So they know it's wrong, but they're going to protect their parents.
And that's what I
Um,
was doing. I was
yeah,
protecting them.
yeah,
Um, you had said, shoot, I'm trying to remember. Um, so subconsciously,
mm-hmm.
you bury this stuff, right? And tend to
Yep,
forget about it. Or
yep,
you make it subconsciously that it never happened. So
yep,
that can be a lot of the reasons why parents don't want to address those issues with their child because they're trying to forget it, or subconsciously they don't
yep,
want to. They spent so long just living their life and not acknowledging it that
yep.
they may have forgotten those details. And the only thing it takes is one trigger to flood it all back.
Yes, yes,
Because it wasn't, my healing wasn't done until I was probably about 27
yeah,
or
yeah,
maybe 28 before I
yeah.
could healthy, happy, normal adult life.
Yeah. And also you bought into the healing process. And I'm gonna speak on that real quick, but let me read this comment. Um I know it started and said, you said multiple times that your dad was doing this to others. You also mentioned that it worried you. Have you ever thought of pressing charges? She talked about that in the beginning. Her therapist helped her to try to press charges. However, it was a statute of limitations that hindered that process, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Also, it says, it's incredible how you have broken the chains. I'm proud of you.
And
Yeah,
that's even considered.
and that's why I chose my guest, because I need to hear and know that you've done some level of work. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times we still have more work to do, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I'm not saying you have to be 100% healed, but I don't want for anyone to think that this platform is a place for you to bash and trash your family or your parents,
Right.
because that is not helpful. How is that going to help you to trash them? You like, I don't want to promote that. That is not what this is about. Because I have had women who hear me say the same thing. This is not a blame situation. This is about understanding how you were traumatized, what you have done to kind of heal and do the work, and what are you doing to break the cycle. That's what this is about. But I still get DMs where some mothers feel like I'm giving people an opportunity to bash mothers. So I just ignore it now at this point, because I'm like, you're dealing with your own guilt if you take this as a negative thing that I'm doing.
Exactly.
You
There's
know,
something I haven't gotten over. And, I can sit here and play the word game of blaming what they did, da 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 da.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, I'm an adult now.
yeah,
I want to live a happy life, a
yeah,
joyful life.
yeah,
God, and that is my right. So
yeah,
I did the work that I needed to do to get to a place where I can wake up happily. And
yes,
a loving husband who like adores
yes,
me and the work and allows me to be home because he knows that makes him happy.
yeah,
And to see this little face like,
yes,
mommy, like, what
absolutely,
what is better than that? Like that's my life.
yes,
I'm happy for it.
yes,
Like,
absolutely.
and I wouldn't have had that if I was still walking around angry and looking at every man like,
Right.
like
Like, you're going to hurt me.
there's a minute that a guy could just ask me a simple question is, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I wouldn't even try. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying like you need to, just to for men or anything like that,
Yeah.
but just I carried that anger out in the world and it affected my work relationships. It
Yeah.
affected relationships. It affected my energy, my depression.
Yes.
The world is out to get me.
Yeah.
It's me against the world, and it's not.
Yeah.
Life isn't like life is so carefree for me. Life is easy for me. Life is stress free for me.
Yeah.
Um, I have the ability to come and go and do as I please. You
Yes.
know, there's
Yes.
no. I wake up and I do my morning prayers and I meditate and I'm just so at peace. And
Yeah.
that like you can after the trauma you can if you're willing to do the work and address it and find a way that works best for you after that phase is over, life is amazing and it's beautiful. But
Amen. They have to buy into their own work in the healing process.
mhm.
And moving on up says, if anything, it's empowering good moms. Thank you so much. And people know that, but because a lot of times, and I'm just going to say it, a lot of times Black women, they don't want to hear truth. They don't want to be told anything, and I get it, because there's so much responsibility on women, period. I don't care what your race or nationality is. It's a lot of responsibility on women, right? But especially, I think, with African American women, they feel like, I already have enough on my plate. I'm doing the best that I can do with what I have. And now you're telling me it's something else I got to work on. So they get defensive, right? And so instead of trying to just hear, listen to understand, they listen and become defensive, just so that they can react. So I don't pay attention to anybody who thinks that I'm giving people a space to bash moms. Every woman that has been on here is a mother, and a wife, except for two of them were not married, and only one has doesn't have children. So they're moms themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's the
Mhm.
beauty of it. I want moms to share how they're breaking a cycle, like you talked about how protective you are with your daughter, but you also want her to be free and experience having a carefree childhood.
And she does. Like she's
Yes.
this happy ball of energy every
Yeah.
day.
Yes.
Every day. And
Yes.
it's beautiful to see, but it is so draining because I'm like, is this normal? Like, I remember seeing other moms, like, they're like, oh, you guys are always doing hobby craft together and you're always like doing these things that I talk about in my mom groups.
Yeah.
And I was like, is that normal? Like, is it normal? Is that healthy? And they're like, yeah, because, and it saddens me, especially with raising little girls. You always hear, enjoy it now because once they turn, whatever hormones kick in, they
Yeah.
become little. I'm like, every child goes through that phase, but if you establish a healthy like flooring. Like
Yeah.
this is our foundation, and
Yeah.
this foundation means you can come into this box and you can express to me what you feel. Because if you don't tell me, I can't help you. Don't
Yeah.
listen to friends. Um, she doesn't go to school. She's homeschooled. Don't
Yeah.
listen to teachers.
Yeah.
Um, Whatever it is, if you
Mhm.
let me know, I can help you.
Yes.
And you want to keep that as they grow, right? Because like
Yeah.
right now, she's off doing her little like it's a church service where she's learning about the word of God and things like that,
Yeah.
right? There by herself. And I want her to experience that independence because that's what happens with this mental development at the age that she's at now.
Hmm.
And she's learning from other kids like what they do in their home. And I'm like, hey, that's cool that,
Yeah.
individual does that at their home, but at our home, this is kind of how we do things.
Yeah.
When we talk, because we talk about race a lot, we have an interracial
Yeah.
marriage.
Hmm.
So we talk about race a lot. So in her mind, it's just normal, but I know it makes other white moms uncomfortable. And I'm like, there's certain conversations that we can keep at home that, we need to develop more.
Right.
And then you can express those outside the home. But as our children grow, we give them space and we give them freedom. But if we give them a safe space at home, they'll always return because it's the safest place they can be. It's where they can be
Yeah.
themselves. I always, when I see kids like acting really like a child in public, Issa's
Yeah.
just like, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. That's just maybe the way that their parents raise them. Because at home, oh, she turns up like up in this house, but in public, she's well mannered. She's
That's good.
confident, shy, but she knows at home she can be who she is at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
I want
good.
her to know, and that's what I want anyone who's listening to this. Like, I want them to know, like, you can move on and have the life you want. But I did want to say one thing. This individual who's commenting, I know her,
Okay.
and I remember in college she invited us over for a get together, and it was like a Mexican get together because she's mixed race as well. Um, and it was like food and drinks and her family, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So she was one of those people that had that influence, but probably never knew it because I never spoke about my past.
Got
So,
it. Got
you
it.
are.
Got it. Yeah, she's been loving this. We thank you guys for your feedback. Definitely. If there's any last minute questions or comments before we wrap up, Sade, I just want to thank you because um, I mean I hear the joy and the peace when you speak. I love the fact that you are being covered by a husband. I love the fact that you are still doing your work. You've made milestones. But when I say doing your work, you're doing your work with your daughter, right?
Mhm.
Because you're allowing her a freedom that a lot of kids don't get to have, to be a child, you
Yeah,
know? Yeah, that's so important.
that is what we both wanted. That was one of the main things when we talked about like parenting roles and how we wanted our children to grow.
Yeah.
Seeing her be just this happy like child, like like a kid, like let's go play
Yeah.
at the pool, play with daddy, let's go do this, let's go do that. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
nice to see she has a childhood that I never had.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said again, for anyone who still has not felt comfortable enough speaking about childhood sexual trauma or abuse, um, definitely you want to be careful about who you share your truth with, just to be honest. I'm
Okay.
never one of those people, yeah, just go tell the world. You have to be careful because a lot of people are broken, and once they get a little bit of information on you, they'll use it um, against you. But I also want people, write in your journal, get it out of you,
Mhm.
process it. If you're not in therapy, if you're against therapy, there's ways to get it out of you. Um, and sometimes you do have to do some yoga, go take a walk, because sometimes it is a lot to think about, like, oh my God, I really went through that. Um, and it's not just with the childhood trauma, that's any type of abusive, whether it's emotionally, physically, verbal abuse. We got to get it out of us, because all we do sometimes is bring it into the next relationship and
Mhm.
wonder why the relationships keep failing, because we're not doing the inner work. So I thank you, Sade, for being a living testament that you
Well,
don't have
thank
to
you
stay
for
stuck.
creating this space. Like
No
you created a
problem.
space for women to say, like, hey, this happened, but this is what I'm doing. Like you
Yes.
created a space that isn't demeaning,
Yeah.
that is aggressive,
Yeah.
and that's coming from a place of love. And I think especially Black women, we need that. We need that place of
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes,
love.
it's definitely all love. If it's not about love, I don't want anything to do with it. So thank you so much. I don't see any more questions. And I know you have to get back to your daughter and family. So I appreciate it. And for those who missed it, don't worry. It's going to be saved and posted in a few minutes. So thank you so much, Sade.
All right, thank you. Have a
No
good day.
problem. Have a good one. Bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.